dare you? Look at what you have done. You must learn some manners. Look at this mess.
Good morning, Clara. I have found you, Clara.
The boy came out of nowhere. One moment I was standing at Mrs. Purdy's vegetable stall, inspecting turnips that had seen better days, and the next a blur of mud, boots, and unbrushed hair crashed into me at full speed, knocked the turnips from my hands, and sent me stumbling sideways into a barrel of winter cabbages. My shawl, my mother's shawl, the only fine thing I owned, a cream wool with blue embroidered cornflowers that she had stitched the year before she died, was now streaked with mud from collar to hem. I looked at the boy. He was perhaps 12 or 13, tall for his age, skinny as a whippet, with a shock of dark curly hair and wild brown eyes that held not a trace of remorse. His clothes were expensive, or had been, before he had apparently rolled through every ditch between here and London. His coat was torn at the elbow, his boots were caked, and he was breathing hard, as though he had been running from something or someone. "Sorry," he said. He did not sound sorry. He sounded like a boy who had said the word so many times it had lost all meaning. Something inside me, the part that had spent 3 years swallowing insults, enduring poverty, and smiling through humiliation, snapped. I grabbed him by the collar. "Do you see this?" I said, holding up the ruined shawl. "This was my mother's. It is the only beautiful thing I own. It cannot be replaced. And you feral little badger, have destroyed it in the time it takes to blink." The boy stared at me. His wild eyes went wide, not with fear, but with something I could not name. Surprise, perhaps? As though no one had spoken to him like that in a very long time. The crowd around us had gone silent, not the comfortable silence of people minding their business, but the held-breath silence of people watching someone walk off a cliff. "Miss," whispered Mrs. Purdy, her face white. "Miss, do you know who?" "I do not care who he is," I said. "He owes me an apology, a real one, and he will stand here until I receive it." The boy looked at me for a long moment, and then slowly, awkwardly, as though the muscles required for sincerity had not been used in years, he bowed. "I am sorry," he said. "Truly, I was running and I did not see you. Your shawl it was beautiful. I am sorry I ruined it." "Thank you," I said. I released his collar. "Now go home and tell whoever is responsible for you that you need a bath, a comb, and a lesson in watching where you are going." He ran. The crowd exhaled. And Mrs. Purdy looked at me with an expression that was equal parts admiration and horror. "That," she said, "was Lord William Hale, the Duke of Ashford's younger brother." The carriage arrived at 7 o'clock the next morning. I was in the kitchen of my rented cottage, a damp, one-room affair at the edge of the village that cost me more than I could afford, making tea from leaves I had already used twice. Through the window I saw it pull up. Black lacquer, gold trim, 4 matched chestnuts, a driver in livery, the kind of carriage that did not belong on my lane and had certainly never stopped at my door. A man stepped out. He was tall. Not merely tall, but commanding, the kind of height that reorganized a room around itself. His hair was dark, nearly black, cut shorter than fashion demanded. His face was sharp, angular, with a jaw that looked like it had been carved from something expensive. His eyes were a deep, startling blue. Not the pale blue of winter sky, but the dark blue of the sea before a storm. He wore a dark charcoal coat, impeccably cut, with no ornament and no waist. Everything about him said, "I do not need to impress you. I have already decided what I am." He knocked on my door. I opened it in my patched house dress with tea-stained fingers and unbrushed hair, because the Duke of Ashford, for that is who he was, though I did not know it yet, had not sent word that he was coming. "Miss Ashworth," he said. "Yes. My name is James Hale. I believe you called my brother a feral badger yesterday." My stomach dropped through the floor. "Aye, my lord, I did not know who he told me about it at dinner. He could not stop talking about it. He described you as..." He paused, and something that might have been amusement flickered at the corner of his mouth. "The angriest woman in England. I was not angry. I was provoked." My brother is provocative. It is his primary skill. He looked at me steadily with those dark blue eyes. "Miss Ashworth, I have a proposal for you. Not the kind that requires a vicar, the kind that requires a great deal of patience and a tolerance for chaos. I am listening. My brother has been expelled from 4 schools in 2 years. He has driven away 6 tutors, 3 governesses, and 1 highly recommended Swiss scholar who lasted 11 days before fleeing back to Geneva. He is wild, undisciplined, rude, and completely unmanageable. He paused. And yesterday, for the first time in 2 years, he apologized to someone, voluntarily. Without being threatened, bribed, or restrained. He apologized to you, because you grabbed him by the collar and told him the truth, and no one in his entire life has done that. I would like you to come to Ashford Hall and teach him. Not as a governess, I do not need someone to teach him French and dancing. I need someone to teach him how to be a human being. You seem to have a talent for it. I stared at him. I am a school teacher, I said. I teach reading and arithmetic to village children. I am not qualified to... You are the only person in 2 years who has made my brother say sorry and mean it. That qualifies you more than any degree from any university in England. He named a salary. It was more than I earned in a year. I should have said no. I should have said that I did not belong in a duke's household, that I was not equipped for aristocratic life, that I had reasons, deep, painful, personal reasons for staying far away from families like his. But the rent was due, the tea leaves were used, and my mother's shawl was ruined. When do I start? I said. My name is Clara Ashworth. I am 24 years old. And I am the daughter of a disgraced man. My father, Edmund Ashworth, was once the finest private librarian and tutor in the south of England. He catalogued rare books, translated manuscripts, and taught the children of 3 noble families. He was brilliant, gentle, unworldly in the way that very intelligent people sometimes are, more comfortable with a medieval codex than a conversation. 7 years ago, he was hired by the Duke of Ashford, the previous Duke, the father of the man who now stood on my doorstep, to catalogue the family's private library. It was the assignment of a lifetime. 3,000 volumes, including manuscripts dating back to the Tudors. My father worked at Ashford Hall for 8 months. He was happy. I was 16, living with an aunt in the village, waiting for him to finish so we could move to London, where he had been promised a position at the British Museum. Then the accusation came. A rare manuscript, a 15th century illuminated psalter worth a small fortune, was reported missing from the Ashford collection. My father was accused of stealing it. There was no trial, no investigation, no evidence beyond the word of Lady Helena Hale, the old Duke's sister, who claimed she had seen my father leaving the library with the manuscript under his coat. My father denied it. He begged for a search of his belongings, his lodgings, his person. No search was conducted. The old Duke, a hard, proud man, dismissed my father on the spot without references, without pay for the final 2 months, and with a letter to every noble household in England declaring Edmund Ashworth a thief. The letter destroyed him. No one would hire a disgraced librarian. No institution would touch him. The British Museum withdrew their offer. My father, who had lived for books, who had given his entire life to the preservation of knowledge, was cast out of the only world he knew. He is alive. He lives with me in the damp cottage, mending books for pennies when anyone will bring them. He does not speak of Ashford Hall. He does not speak much at all anymore. And now the son of the man who destroyed him was offering me a salary to walk back through those doors. I did not tell James Hale any of this. Not yet. I packed my bag and went to Ashford Hall. Lord William Hale was, as promised, a disaster. He climbed out of windows. He hid in the stables. He put a toad in my writing desk on my first day and spent the morning watching from behind a curtain to see if I would scream. I did not scream. I picked up the toad, carried it outside, set it gently in the garden, and returned to the desk. If you're going to test me, I said calmly, you will need to try harder than a toad. I once found a rat in my porridge. Your toad is amateur work. Will stared at me from behind the curtain, and then reluctantly, suspiciously, like a wild animal approaching food left by a stranger, he sat down at the table. We began. I did not teach him the way his previous tutors had. I did not force Latin grammar or mathematical theorems. I asked him what he was interested in. He said horses. I said, good, we will study the anatomy of the horse. That requires Latin terminology, mathematical proportions, and the ability to read a veterinary text. You will learn all 3 without realizing it. He was, beneath the wildness, desperately intelligent. His mind moved fast, too fast for the rigid structures of traditional education. He needed someone who could keep up with him, redirect him, challenge him without crushing him. He also needed someone who understood what he would not say, that he was 12 years old, that his parents had died in a carriage accident 3 years ago, and that he was furious, at the world, at God, at everyone who had not saved them. "You're angry," I said to him one afternoon, after he had thrown a book across the room. "I'm not. You are, and that's allowed, but throwing books is not allowed. Books did nothing to you." He looked at me, his wild brown eyes, the same eyes that had crashed into me at the market, filled suddenly with tears. "Everyone leaves," he said. "Every tutor, every governess, everyone. They all leave." "I'm not leaving," I said. "You will. Look at me." He looked. "I am the woman who grabbed you by the collar in front of 60 people and called you a feral badger. Do I seem like someone who gives up easily?" He almost smiled. "Almost." "No," he said. "You seem like the angriest woman in England." "Good. Now pick up the book." He picked it up. James Hale watched. I noticed it in the second week. He would appear in the doorway of the schoolroom, silently without announcement, and stand there, arms folded, listening, sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour. He never interrupted. He never corrected. He simply watched. At first I thought he was supervising, checking that I was worth the salary, but the way he watched was not supervisory. It was something else. Something careful, something quiet, something that reminded me of the way my father used to study a manuscript he loved with patience and wonder and the fear of damaging something precious. He began finding reasons to speak with me. Small things at first, a question about Will's progress, a book recommendation, an observation about the weather that did not need to be spoken aloud. Then longer conversations. Then conversations that lasted through dinner, through the evening, into the night, until Mrs. Brackett, the housekeeper, cleared her throat and reminded us both that it was midnight. He was not what I expected. The Duke of Ashford was not cold. He was careful, not distant guarded. He carried the weight of the title, the estate, the tenants, the brother, the dead parents, and the expectations of a world that wanted him to be something he was not. And he carried all of it alone, without complaint, because no one had ever told him he was allowed to put it down. "You never laugh," I said to him one evening. "I laugh." "You smile." "It is not the same thing. A smile is a decision. A laugh is an accident. You do not allow yourself accidents." He looked at me with those dark storm blue eyes. "Perhaps I need someone to surprise me," he said. "Is that another job requirement? Tutor, tamer of feral badgers, and professional surprise giver?" He laughed. A real laugh, sudden, unguarded, startled out of him like a bird flushed from cover. It transformed his entire face, and I felt something shift in my chest that I did not have permission to feel, because I knew something he did not. I knew who my father was. I knew what his father had done. And I knew that the moment he discovered the truth, everything, the conversations, the laughter, the doorway watching, would end. It happened in the library. Ashford Hall's library was magnificent. 3,000 volumes arranged in a cathedral-ceilinged room with mahogany shelves stretching 20 feet high, rolling ladders, a gallery, and a fireplace large enough to stand in. It was the library my father had catalogued. His work was still visible, neat, precise handwriting on index cards filed in oak drawers. I found his handwriting in the third week. I was looking for a book for Will, a treatise on equine anatomy, when I opened a drawer and saw it. My father's meticulous script, card after card, documenting every volume in the collection with the care and reverence of a man who loved books the way most people love their children. Psalter, illuminated C1460, Franco-Flemish origin, 47 folios, gilt lettering, miniature paintings on vellum. Cabinet 7, Shelf 3, Position 12, the Psalter. The Psalter, the manuscript he was accused of stealing. My hands trembled. I went to Cabinet 7, Shelf 3, Position 12. The space was empty. But behind the empty space, pushed to the back of the shelf, hidden behind a row of later volumes that someone had placed in front, was a leather-wrapped bundle. I pulled it out. I unwrapped it. The Psalter. It was here. It had always been here. My father had catalogued it, shelved it, recorded its exact position, and someone had simply pushed it behind other books and declared it stolen. My father had not taken it. He had never taken it. The manuscript had been in this library for 7 years, hidden in plain sight, while my father's life was destroyed by a lie. I sat on the library floor with the Psalter in my lap and wept. Lady Helena Hale arrived on a Thursday. She was the old Duke's younger sister, a woman of 55 with iron-gray hair, a hawk's face, and the kind of rigid aristocratic bearing that made servants straighten their spines when she entered a room. She had been beautiful once, in the way that cold things can be beautiful. Now she was merely formidable. She swept into the house as though she still owned it, which, in a sense, she believed she did. She had managed the household during the old Duke's illness, handled the estate during the transition, and positioned herself as the indispensable authority on all matters Ashford. She took one look at me and froze. "What is your name?" she said. "Clara Ashworth, my lady." The color drained from her face. It was fast, a flicker, barely visible, but I saw it. And in that flicker I saw something I recognized: guilt. "Ashworth," she repeated. "Any relation to the tutor? The one who stole from us?" "My father," I said quietly, "who did not steal anything." Her eyes narrowed. "He was dismissed for theft. The matter was settled 7 years ago. The matter was never investigated, and the manuscript was never missing." I should not have said it. I knew it the moment the words left my mouth. But 7 years of silence, 7 years of watching my father shrink into himself, 7 years of a lie that had cost us everything. It broke through my careful control like water through a dam. Lady Helena looked at me with an expression I will never forget. Not anger, something colder than anger, calculation. The expression of a person deciding how to eliminate a problem. "You are mistaken," she said, "and you would be wise to keep your mistakes to yourself." She went directly to James. "The girl must go." I heard her say through the study door, "She is the daughter of a convicted thief. Her presence in this house is an insult to your father's memory." "My father's memory," James said slowly, "is not so fragile that it cannot survive the presence of a schoolteacher. James, I'm telling you, and I'm telling you, Aunt Helena, that Miss Ashworth stays. Will has not thrown a single object in 3 weeks. She stays." I told James everything that evening. We sat in the library, his library, my father's library, the library where a Salter had sat hidden for 7 years, and I told him about my father, about the accusation, about the destroyed career, the withdrawn museum position, the letter that blacklisted him from every noble household in England, about the damp cottage and the reused tea leaves and the man who barely spoke anymore because the world had taken everything from him except silence. And then I showed him the Psalter. I placed it on his desk. I opened it to the first page, the exquisite illuminated initial, gold leaf gleaming in the lamplight, a 15th century masterpiece that had been hidden behind a row of encyclopedias for 7 years. "Your father's library cataloged this manuscript in Cabinet 7, Shelf 3, Position 12, I said. "My father recorded its location. I found it exactly where he put it. It was never stolen. It was hidden by someone who wanted my father destroyed." James stared at the Psalter. He stared at the catalog card in my father's handwriting. He stared at me. "Why?" he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Why would anyone? Because your aunt wanted my father gone. She wanted control of this library, this household, this family. And an outsider, a common tutor who was earning your father's trust, who was being offered a permanent position, was a threat to that control." The silence that followed was devastating. I watched James's face as the truth settled into it, layer by layer, like sediment falling through water. Shock, then understanding. Then a guilt so profound it seemed to age him 5 years and 5 seconds. "My father did this," he said. "My family did this. Your aunt did this. Your father believed a lie. There is a difference." "The difference," he said, "does not undo 7 years." He stood up. He walked to the window. He pressed his forehead against the glass and closed his eyes. "Clara, yes, I need to see your father. What happened next I will describe precisely, because it is the moment I need you to understand." James rode to my cottage the following morning. He brought a carriage, not for himself but for my father. He walked into the damp, one-room cottage where the finest private librarian in England was sitting at a broken table, mending a damaged book with shaking hands, and he knelt. The Duke of Ashford knelt on the floor of a cottage and said, "Mr. Ashworth, my name is James Hale. I am the Duke of Ashford. 7 years ago, my family wronged you in a way that I cannot undo and cannot forgive. I am here to begin, only to begin, making it right." My father looked at him. His eyes, once sharp, once brilliant, dimmed by 7 years of shame, blinked. "I have found the Psalter," James said. "It was in the library. It was always in the library. You did not take it. You were falsely accused by my aunt, Lady Helena, for reasons I now understand. I have the evidence. I have the catalogue in your own hand, and I have come to tell you that I will issue a formal, public retraction of the accusation, a written apology bearing the Ashford seal, and a letter to every household and institution in England restoring your name and your reputation." My father's hands stopped shaking. "I would also like," James continued, "to offer you the position of head librarian at Ashford Hall." The library you catalogued 7 years ago still bears your work. No one has touched it since. It is waiting for you." My father looked at me. I was standing in the doorway, tears streaming down my face, unable to speak. "Your daughter," my father said slowly, "called a boy a feral badger." "She did. She gets that from her mother." James almost smiled. "She gets a great many things from a great many places, all of them extraordinary." My father stood. He was taller than I remembered, as though the shame had been pressing him down for 7 years, and had suddenly released its grip. "I accept," he said. James confronted Lady Helena in the great hall of Ashford Park. He did not do it privately. He did not do it kindly. He assembled the senior household staff, Mrs. Brackett, the butler, Mr. Finch, the steward, the head gardener, and he laid out the evidence, the psalter found in its catalogued position, the index cards in Edmund Ashworth's handwriting, the complete absence of any investigation at the time of the accusation. "You lied," he said to his aunt. His voice was not loud. "It did not need to be. You accused an innocent man of theft to remove him from a position that threatened your influence over my father. You destroyed a man's career, his health, and his daughter's future to protect your own power." Lady Helena stood rigid. Her hawk face was white, but her eyes were hard. "Your father made the decision to dismiss him," she said. You merely lied. And my father believed you because he trusted you. That trust was the weapon you used, and you used it without mercy." He turned to the staff. "Mr. Edmund Ashworth has been appointed head librarian of Ashford Hall, effective immediately. Any member of this household who treats him with anything less than the respect he deserves will answer to me personally." He turned back to Helena. "You will leave Ashford Hall by morning. You will receive a quarterly allowance because you are family, and I do not destroy family, even when family has destroyed others. But you will not return to this house, you will not contact Mr. Ashworth. And you will not speak of this matter to anyone, because if you do, I will make the full circumstances public, including the letters I have found in your correspondence drawer that confirm you knew the Salter's location when you made the accusation." Helena left before dawn. She did not say goodbye. That evening, James found me in the library. I was sitting in the chair where my father would sit, the chair by the window with the light falling on the catalogue drawers, surrounded by 3,000 books that my father had touched, organized and loved. "Clara," he said, "Your Grace. Do not call me that. Not you. Not ever. James." He sat down across from me. He looked exhausted. The confrontation with Helena, the visit to my father, the weight of correcting a 7-year injustice, all of it showed on his face. "I need to say something to you," he said, "and I need you to let me finish before you respond." "All right. I hired you because my brother apologized to you. That is true, but it is not the whole truth. The whole truth is that I watched you through the schoolroom door for 3 weeks and He stopped, ran a hand through his dark hair, started again. "I have spent my entire adult life managing the estate, the title, the tenants, the staff, the finances, my brother, my aunt, the expectations of a world that sees a duke and not a man. I have managed everything, and I have felt nothing. Nothing real, nothing that mattered, because feeling requires the kind of vulnerability that a duke cannot afford." He looked at me, "And then you walked into my house and called my brother a feral badger and taught him about horses and refused to scream at a toad and laughed at my weather observations and told me I don't laugh enough. And I felt everything, all at once, like a dam breaking. James, I am not finished. I know what my family did to yours. I know that I can never fully repair it. I know that asking you to love a man whose name destroyed your father is the most selfish thing I have ever done. But I am asking because I cannot manage this. I cannot schedule it or delegate it or file it in a drawer. I love you, Clara. Impractically, inconveniently, completely." The library was silent. 3,000 books held their breath. "You're right," I said. "You cannot manage this." His face fell. "But," I said, "neither can I, and I have been trying, for weeks. I have been trying to manage the fact that I am falling in love with the son of the man who ruined my father, in the library where my father's handwriting is still in the drawers, and I cannot manage it any more than you can. Is that a yes?" "It is a you still owe me a shawl," he laughed. The real laugh, the surprised, unguarded, accidental laugh that I had heard only twice before, and that I intended to hear every day for the rest of my life. "You shall have 100 shawls. I want one cream wool, blue cornflowers, like my mother's. Done." And I want a brass plaque in the library with my father's name on it. Already ordered. And I want Will to stop putting toads in things. That may be beyond even a duke's power. It is summer now. I'm writing this at the desk in the Ashford Hall Library, my father's library, which is now, in a sense, my library too. Through the window I can see the south lawn, where Will is attempting to teach a deerhound to fetch. The deerhound is uninterested. Will is undeterred. He is 14 now. He has not been expelled from anything in a year. He reads voraciously, not because I force him, but because he discovered somewhere between the horse anatomy and the Latin terminology that books are not the enemy. They are the door. He still calls me the angriest woman in England. He says it with a grin that is so like his brother's that it makes my heart ache. My father sits in his chair by the window, the chair with the good light, cataloging a new acquisition. His hands do not shake anymore. His voice has returned. Last week he gave a lecture on medieval manuscripts to a group of scholars from Oxford, and they gave him a standing ovation. On the brass plaque above the library door, it reads, "The Ashworth Collection, catalogued by Edmund Ashworth, head librarian, Ashford Hall." James had it made from the same brass used for the estate's original foundation plaque, because he said, "Your father's work is as foundational as the stones, and on my dressing table beside my hairbrush and my father's pocket watch, there is a shawl. Cream wool, blue embroidered cornflowers, identical to the one my mother made. James had it commissioned from the finest embroiderer in London. It arrived on our wedding morning wrapped in tissue paper, with a note, for the angriest woman in England, who taught my brother to be human, my library to be honest, and me to laugh by accident. I owe you considerably more than a shawl. J, I wear it every day, and sometimes when no one is looking, I press it to my face and breathe in the wool, and I think of my mother. And I think of the muddy boy in the market who crashed into my life and ruined everything and saved everything in the time it takes to blink.